Welcome to Kenpo University. My name's Alan Babinick and I'm your instructor. Today we're talking about
the 12 storms of Kenpo.
Cool, huh? There's 12 club techniques, so storm is keyword for club. And I'm going to talk about what some of the keywords mean in some of the other videos when we're talking about kicks and things like that. But for clubs, storm is your keyword. The tricky part about the club techniques is they're all called the storm. So the only way to remember which one's which is to know what the first word means. Now, when we're going through all 12 clubs, there's 4 overhead clubs, there's 4 roundhouse clubs, there's 2 pokes, a high and a low, and then there's 2 coming from your flank. So 4 roundhouse, 4 overhead, 2 pokes, and 2 from the flank as we go through. And I'm going to kind of put them together like that because to me when I'm practicing, I'll practice all 4 roundhouses, whether they're coming forwards or backwards or whatever they're doing, and then I'll do all the overheads, then I'll do all the rest, and then you just mix them all up, and you have to read, see what's going to happen, and do the appropriate thing. So here we go. These are the overhead clubs. Now, it goes checking, evading, obstructing, and capturing. And this goes all the way from yellow to, in my school at least, it's green. So when you're doing the overhead clubs, you want to remember that or actually when you're doing any of the clubs, you have to remember to jump in the length of the club. So if I'm only holding a club this big, I'm always trying to get to the wrist. I don't want to grab the club. Well, not right away. I don't want to block the club. I want to block the wrist or go up to the wrist. So if the club's only this far, I could shuffle. I could step and I'd still make it. If he's hitting you with something this big, you can't shuffle that far, probably, very well, at least. So you're probably going to have to jump in or leap in on that one, all right? So you're always trying to get in the length of the club. Now, with the overhead clubs, checking is going to go off to your right. Evading goes to your left. All right, so you have one that goes this way, one that goes this way. You have obstructing, which goes straight to the front and blocks the club. It stops the club. And then you have capturing, which also goes straight to the front, but this time we're letting the club go through. So we're going to do our block and let the club roll right through into the arm break and the hit to the knee. So you have 4 overheads, one to the right, one to the left, one forward where you can actually stop the club, and one forward where the club kind of parries, well, not parrying it, but the club kind of goes through. All right, and those are the overheads. Checking, here's what the names are. Checking, when you move off on checking, you're not trying to hit the club, you're not trying to grab the club, you're not doing anything. You're checking to make sure you're not going to get hit by the club, is what you're doing. So when you leap to the side and you do your outward block and your hands are up here, this is not supposed to try to hit the club or grab the club or anything like that. What you're doing is you're aware that he can swing again. And if you've listened to some of the other tapes on weapons and such, you know that he's going to keep swinging until he hits you. He's swinging a club at your head already. He's not going to stop just because you missed, right? So when the club comes down, on checking the storm, you're hopping off to the side or leaping off to the side, get your hands up, and then when he misses, you're supposed to kick him in the groin. If you kick him in the groin, it's going to stop that second swing from coming in. Pain causes thought cancellation, etc. So, but if you didn't, if you kicked him in the leg or something like that, he's going to come back with a roundhouse. So if the club was coming down at me this way and I leapt off to the side, the next club's going to be coming this way. So that hand becomes the check for the next swing. So on checking the storm, remember you're not really trying to get by the way, if you can grab the club, hey, good on you. But it's not really what's called for in the technique, right? So evading the storm, I don't know if you ever thought about like evasive maneuvers or evading somebody. If somebody was throwing stuff at you, you wouldn't run straight away, you'd zigzag. So evading the storm, we go off to this corner, do our block, we kick and step into this corner. And we punch the guy, then we do our knees, There's a couple of versions that we could do of this one. I think as written, this would be the option, okay? But you knock the guy down, and then I turn back and drop my knee on his ankle and crush his ankle as I cross out that way. So I went this way, and this way again. So I'm evading. So evading the storm, that's where the name comes from, is you're zipping back and forth trying to evade that club. Obstructing the storm is called obstructing the storm because it's coming straight down at you. You do your X block over your shoulder, right over there, and it stops the club. You have obstructed it. An obstruction is something that gets in the way, right? So you have stopped the club, it's obstructed, it's not going anyplace. That's where obstructing comes from. Capturing the storm, now, a lot of times I do teach my students how to get the club out of the guy's hand, or when you're done doing the technique, take the club out and hit him with it, that type of thing. But capturing the storm is the first time in the system, this one's up in green for us, this is the first time in the system where it actually shows you how to take the club away. You have captured, he had the storm, you stopped him, you grabbed him, as you do the step through, you get that club, you do the punch up and get the club in your hand, you have captured the storm from him. And that's where those names come from. And again, if I'm fighting towards you and there's a car over here, well, I evidently can't do like evading the storm. I can't step into the car. So I could go to the right or I could go straight in. But we have, for the overhead clubs, we have to the right, to the left, and two that go straight forward. So if you were fighting in between cars or something like that, obstructing or capturing would be the ones you would want. Otherwise, do the one you like the most. All right, next set, the roundhouse clubs. So with the roundhouse clubs, we have calming, defying, returning, and securing. So there's three where the club's coming at you, one where the club's coming back at you. Of course, that would be returning. So calming the storm, if you think about a storm like a tornado that's swirling around over your head and things like that, where's the calm part of the tornado, or where's the calm part of the hurricane? Right in the middle, right? So when that club's coming around this way, you're jumping or leaping straight in to the center of the storm. You're going to the calm part of the storm inside the club swing. Anything outside the club, or anything outside his wrist, you're in the danger zone, right? So you have to leap in to the calm part of the storm, which is right towards the center. Defying the storm, now that club's still coming around, but I'm defying the storm, not the guy, the storm. So when I leap in on this one, I go right for forward, I'm going against the club arm and the swing, not the guy. So calming the storm is straightforward. Defying the storm, I'm defying the storm, not the guy. So I'm actually going to stop the club on this part of the swing. So you're defying the storm. Returning storm, he swings, maybe you're not ready, maybe you're just being defensive. You move slightly out of the way. I've seen it done a bunch of ways, but move slightly out of the way. And then you're going straight back in. So you're going back to your 730 line, and then you're shooting up to the 130 line this way. So you're shooting up to the 130 line, and really, if you think about it, you're doing the same exact thing that you did in defying the storm. The club was coming in, we went in and we stopped it before it got to the major part of the arc that's going to hurt. So when you swing, whether it's roundhouse club, whether it's roundhouse punch, there's the sweet spot where, oh yeah, that's going to hurt the most. But if I started punching like this, that's not going to be effective. It's already past the power point on the arc that's going to hurt the guy. And if it stops back here, it's not to the power point on the arc that's going to hurt the guy. So when we're doing defying and returning, we're trying to get in there and stop the club before it's on its maximum. And maybe that's why for returning we jumped back. We're like, oh, nope, I don't have time to jump in. The club's too far into the swing, so I'm going to move back, and then I'm going to come in, and when the club's coming this way, remember on a returning storm, you're trying to follow the club. That's why you don't want to jump too far back. I don't really want to give the guy a second swing. When he swings past, I'd rather be moving and then move right back in on that swing before he starts swinging backwards. But whatever, you got to stop that club with the double chops again before it gets going. And that's returning storm because it's on the return path, right? Okay? And then securing the storm. Now, securing the storm is exact opposite footwork of calming. So we're going to do the same thing. So if I started left foot forward because he had a club and I jump in, I'm going right foot forward, and that's going to be calming the storm. If I'm right foot forward when I'm ready to start, when I leap in, I'm going to do securing the storm because that's left foot forward. So calming and securing, the base footwork is exactly opposite each other as you're going in. Now, the name securing, when you secure something, like you secure your house or you secure your car, you're locking it up. So when you're trying to lock something up, in this case, it's going to be the club. So when you go in and you punch the guy in the face and this hand's up, blocks the club, as this hooks around and you lock and you spin around, you're locking that arm up and you are securing that storm. You're locking that storm up. He can't hit you with the storm anymore. He could try to punch you if he wanted to, but you have secured the storm so that he can't use it anymore because it's locked up in your arm. And that's where that name comes from. So calming and securing goes straight in. And then defying goes to the 1030 angle-ish. And then returning, you're jumping back or leaping back to the 730 angle and you're jumping back in on the 130 angle. So are you seeing a pattern at all with this? So with the overheads, we had checking, evading, obstructing, capturing. And then with this one, we have, defying, returning, calming, calming and securing go towards you. So I have one to the left, one to the right, two to the front on both sets. So do you see the patterns that we're running with here in the clubs? All right, time for the next set, the pokes. So we have two of them. We have clipping and circling. And pretty straightforward, really. Clipping's low, circling's high. Clipping, the name clipping, if you think about it, if you were in your car and you accidentally clipped something, that means you hit it and bounced off it to the side, right? Or kind of moved it a little bit. So clipping is when you're just, I'm just hitting it a little bit off to the side. It wasn't a major crash. I clipped the guy, all right? So when you're doing clipping the storm, you could think that as you step forward and you're doing your chop, by the way, book written, you're stepping up to the, 1030 angle. Probably safer if you take your right foot back to your 730 angle. But remember, you have to be able to hit the wrist or be able to hit the pressure point in the arm. So he's got to be coming in pretty hard at you. However you do it, whether you're stepping forward or whether you're stepping right foot back, you have to be able to do your sword hand to the pressure point on the arm. Hopefully he drops the club. Depends how good you are whether that's going to happen or not. All right. So, but clipping is where I'm stepping off and I'm doing my downward sword hand. And if the club actually, because I turned, if I was standing straight like this and he hit me straight on, that's going to hurt. As long as I'm off to the side, I'm clipping his arm, I'm hitting his arm, and if the club hits me a little bit and brushes off to the side because now I'm on a angle of deflection, you could call that the clipping too. So however you want to remember it. Circling the storm, well, there's a technique we could talk about for quite a while. A little bit of a category completion technique here. So, but circling the storm, if you know the first couple moves of it, you're spinning around in a circle. Food for thought. This is the short-range version of flashing mace. So if you know flashing mace, how you hit and spin around and go back, you're behind the guy or next to the guy and you're hitting him. Circling the storm is the short-range elbow version of flashing mace. So, but circling the storm, it's just you're doing all those circles. And if you think about it, you're circling all kinds of up and down with your hands, the whole thing. So that's where the name circling the storm comes from. And then the two flank ones. Two flank overhead clubs. So brushing the storm and escape from the storm. The difference is the range that you step out into. So the first moves are pretty much the same. One thing I want you to remember on this, though, I was talking about you have to jump or leap in or jump, whatever you want to do. The length of the club. So a lot of times I see people do this technique and they just take one little step out and they do their palm to the face and the parry off to the side. You're probably going to have to leap because his club's probably like this big. So unless he's trying to come in really deep on you, you're probably going to have to leap. So you're going to push off with your left foot, push into the strike to the face as you're going off to the side. So just remember that you're going to need that. And then brushing the storm, when you pick the leg up, when you grab the leg and pull it back, you have him, you're relatively close. Relatively. You're in snap kick range, right? So because you're going to kick the guy in the groin in brushing the storm. So that's your range for brushing the storm. When you do escape from the storm, we take that long step back. So we take a longer step back. And you shouldn't be able to kick the guy in the groin. And that's why you have to do a right front crossover and bust his knee on your leg. It's another category completion technique. So if I talk about how to do the techniques one of these days, don't do the whole thing. It's kind of impossible. If you know escape from the storm, you know he's going to drop. You're going to break his knee, hit it off, peck up. You're probably not going to get the second peck in. It would be peck, turn, kick, done. Get out of there. Maybe stomp on the ankle on the way out. So we do the whole thing for category completion. We do both sides. We know why we do it. It's just not really going to happen that way. So just food for thought on that one if you know the technique.
Oh, wow, man.
Some of the clubs are done on the opposite side in the katas. So brushing the storm's in 5. So you're going to be able to do the opposite side for brushing the storm. And then capturing, clipping, circling, and escape from the storm are done in 6. So you're going to do the opposite side on those already. But none of the roundhouse ones. Now the roundhouse ones, we already have 2 sides, right? We have the normal ones and returning storm coming in. You still might want to do the opposite sides on those by yourself. So 5 out of the 12 are going to be done on the opposite side for you. Well, you're doing them, but they're done in the katas. You're going to have to do them anyhow. The other ones, they're not done on the opposite side. Kind of up to you to do. And the other thing, when you're working weapons, the weapons techniques work anything below it. All right. If you want to know what I'm talking about, watch the video, the order or weapons, the order of danger, I think it's called. So just look for order of danger. There's one for techniques, there's one for weapons. But if they're doing an overhead club, if you ever said to yourself, wait a second, I see these guys out there, they're throwing overhead punches and these haymakers coming around like this, how would I deal with those? Clubs, all right? If you ever said, wait a second, how come there's not a low punch to the stomach in the system? How come all the punches are to the face? What if I need a low punch to the stomach? Clipping the storm, right? So, or if the guy's just got his finger in your face, go ahead and do circling the storm, or a version of it, let's just say that, because it's a category completion technique. So when you're looking at your clubs, when you're doing the flank ones, you've got the backbreaker and needle compulsion coming in from the flank over here. Then we've got destructive fans coming in from my left flank. If you know those, great, because those are all going to be done on the opposite side in 5 anyhow. So you're going to be doing the opposite sides on those, at least the backbreaker. So as you do these, just remember, if you want to catch the arm, because when you're doing the backbreaker and kneel compulsion, you're parrying the arm off, doing the poke to the eye. You have to do the poke to the eye, right? I hope you know that. And then you can get behind the guy. That's the only thing that lets you get behind him. But if you want to catch the arm for something like, just to put you in the right frame of mind, taming the mace, if I did brushing the storm, if the punch was coming in over here, I parried this off and hit him down, hey, now I can lock that arm up and go for some locks or some manipulations, takedowns, whatever you want. So when you put brushing the storm and escape from the storm in with the backbreaker and kneel compulsion, you get a couple more variations that you might be able to play with there. Brushing the storm is called brushing the storm because it's coming real close to your head. It's coming if I'm standing this way and the club's coming in, it's coming right next to my head as I do that palm up to the body. So I'm not trying to block it like way over there or parry it way over there. It's pretty close, okay? So it's brushing the storm. Escape from the storm, pretty much the same thing. Again, the beginnings are the same on that. Escape from the storm, if you want to try to remember which one it is, you could say, oh, I'm escaping and stepping backwards, and that's why you tried to escape. You tried to get further away, and that's why you have more range in between you and that other guy. All right? So that's all the clubs. There's a lot to them. There's still a bit more that I'm not talking about. As we do techniques or katas, we'll talk about all the intricacies of all these techniques and stuff like that. But as we go through, those are the
12 Storms of Kenpo.
Thank you for watching this video production from Kenpo University.